You got a little comeuppance. Vatican City.
I went to Vatican City, and you've heard of audiences with the Pope,
Yeah.
right? Well, it's not quite like it sounds. Like you're sitting there talking to the Pope. You're in a group of maybe 100 people or more, or, but a bunch of people. The Pope comes out and rings a bell and signs. Anyway, and then he says a few words, and that's pretty much it. It's not like you're going to discuss much. I then met personally with this man, and Cardinal, and he looks at me, and I've told him the whole story, and I asked what I should do, and told him about the lawsuit, and he says, keep it up, keep it up, keep it up, keep fighting. He says, the North American church doesn't listen to Rome. We know about this problem, it's very severe, and someday it's going to hurt the church. And so I felt a little discouraged, but I learned, and I just kept working on my project then.
And the name of this cardinal?
And the name of the cardinal was a guy named Cardinal, you can check it out, Ratzinger. Now, then I'm in my office 10 or 15 years later, watching on television, as they say, and now the new Pope, Cardinal Ratzinger. So the new Pope now, the existing Pope, is the one I met with then, and he was the one that told me the problem in America and it's out of control. I think this is the first time I've ever told this publicly.
You actually got your audience with the Pope?
So I had my audience with the Pope. It was just a little bit before he became the Pope. But it was interesting because at that time, my lawsuit, as I told you way back then, was the first one in the United States claiming this kind of problem, and the judge threw it out, dismissed, let out the church and the priest. But since then, I don't need to tell you the problem has surfaced, just like Ratzinger told me it would.
You just kind of skirted around your involvement with the Oklahoma City bombing. Is that something that you represented?
I represented the grand juror, Hoppy Heidelberg. This Hoppy was on the grand jury, that indicted McVeigh. But he heard enough there that he was upset and wanted to question more, which a grand juror normally has the right to do. See, unknown to most Americans, the grand jury is supposed to be an absolute machine where these people on the grand jury get to bring in witnesses and ask questions. And yes, the prosecutor, so to speak, is the one that arranges it, subpoenas, and brings them. But the prosecutor is supposed to listen to that grand jury. And Hoppy, speaking out for some of the other grand jurors, wanted to bring in other witnesses because information they gathered in the grand jury was that McVeigh wasn't alone. There were some other people and other things that he wanted to bring out. And the judge refused to let him do it and told him he would be punished and put in jail if he kept asking or pressing. So that's when I jumped in representing him and filed an action. And
while the grand jury was still convened?
Yeah, well, the grand jury was still convened and wanted to maintain the building, keep the building up long enough to have a team go in there to examine it. Why? Because there were all kinds of questions about what really happened with this bomb. And I had hired this team. They were the ones that had done the World Trade Center bombing, or one of those bombings in New York before. The
1993.
Yeah, I think that was it. They were real prominent. I had them arranged, and at the last minute I got a call from McVeigh's attorney. McVeigh, you know who McVeigh was. And they said, hey, listen, we admire you, applaud what you're doing, but would you let us? Remember, this is a court-appointed attorney, I think. What was his name? I can't remember right now. But they were court-appointed. The government appointed him, to represent him, because supposedly he had no funding. Anyway, and he said, but since we're the main defendant, my client, we would have the highest priority to keep the building standing. And we could guarantee we can do it, whereas you're just representing kind of unknowns that may have an interest. Would you back off and let us have your firm or your investigating company you got on hold to do it? And I said, well, shoot, yeah, you'd be able to get it way quicker and you'd be guaranteed. So I agreed to that. Verbally on the phone when they called me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't 6 to 8 hours later, I'm watching TV. They seen very quickly, not that day, I think. And they said both McVeigh's attorneys and the U.S. government have agreed now to destroy the building, and it'll be destroyed tomorrow morning. And I went crazy, and I tried calling him. I couldn't get him up.
Had you known, would you have
Something's
not
fishy. I don't.
given your consent?
I'm still burning about it, and I still have funny feelings because. Oh, and how did they deal with the issue of the grand jury and my representing Mr. Heidelberg and some other grand jurors to have the grand jury ask more questions? Guess what? Go check the record. Instantly, the judge just dismissed the whole grand jury, so it no longer existed. First of all, the judge threatened to put Mr. Heidelberg in jail. Then when I got involved and started filing stuff, dismissed the whole grand jury. So I guess I've had a few things happen in this whole Franklin thing since I got involved, and that make me wonder sometimes.
I'm going to splice in a picture of that on the wall there.
Oh yeah.
And just to show how...
See the other picture right next to it. You know who that black guy is with me in the picture?
This one right here?
Yep, that's in Washington, D.C. at the Kennedy Center. I was decorated as one of the 8 most outstanding Vietnam veterans for... I went back to Vietnam after I'd been a senator for 5 years, right as Saigon was falling in '75, organized Operation Baby Lift. Did you ever hear of Operation Baby Lift?
Yes, I did, at the
I
time.
went back and
yeah.
organized Operation Baby Lift, brought out 2,834 of the mostly half American, half Vietnamese orphans that were being abandoned.
So who is the black man in that photo?
Hank Aaron. He was the one selected to give the award there.
I'm from Littleton, Colorado myself, and I personally know a lot of the students and parents who were affected that day in the shootings. You were asked by at least one of the families to become involved in that. What was your involvement in?
I filed a lawsuit on behalf of one of the kids. And my fundamental claim was that one of the drugs this boy, Harris, was taking causes teenagers particularly to be suicidal. You follow what I'm saying?
Yes.
And to make a long story short, of course, you're fighting Solvay was the drug company involved. They manufacture whatever the drugs are.
Can you spell that out?
Solvay. I don't. Anyway, and of course the drug companies fight it with a passion and bring in the toughest people in the world. I kept battling, but the amazing thing to me is the careful control. As I say, this is why I've become a little cynical about government, because it seems that at key places there are government officials that don't always do what the people need and want and should receive. Unfortunately and tragically, and I hope it changes someday, I can't talk about certain things. I'm the only person who's taken a deposition of the Harris family, of the doctors that were treating this young boy, and I'm the only one who's seen, other than certain certain officials, all kinds of things in this case that are now sealed, and they're trying to be destroyed, as you know. And in fact, I had 2 federal marshals show up in my office, law office, when the judge ordered these things sealed and record destroyed, to go through my files to take copies of, if you can believe it, certain depositions I had taken. So all I can do now, because I finally stepped out of the lawsuit and the kid settled for, got a settlement of a few $1,000s or something that's secret and whatever. My claim there that these drugs cause a certain amount of children to be very suicidal. Where they just want to do it in a dramatic fashion and so on and so forth. And just study the whole picture of what actually happened there in Columbine. And if they ever release or don't destroy all the records on this case, I think you'll find that is the most accurate lawsuit that was ever filed on this whole thing.